Hello, this is Jessi Sletton from Empowering Postpartum, and welcome to the Spanglish World Networks on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both the Zingo TV app on the respective app stores on iOS and Android devices. And while you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is totally free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. We are back this week for another inspiring episode of Empowering Postpartum with me, Jessi Sletton, your postpartum empowerment coach, helping you feel confident, prepared, and holistically supported for your unique journey into parenthood. And I am honored to introduce my guest this week, infertility coach Abbe of InCircle Fertility, and we're going to be chatting about the unexpected struggles birth givers who walk with infertility stories can really experience when transitioning out of their infertility journey and into parenthood. So good morning, Abbe. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jessi. So happy to be here. Love your show.
Thank you so much. This is going to be a really informative and I think a really special episode where we can help birth givers feel not so alone who's been through this journey. Because I think it's not very talked about. You are a wonderful advocate in this realm.
Thank you.
And, touching on that, I would love for you, if you feel comfortable, to share a bit about your story and how you came into doing the work that you do and what you do.
Absolutely. So my husband and I went on a very insane 6-year journey through infertility. Literally, you name it, we went through it. And nobody thinks they're going to struggle, right? Everyone thinks, okay, this is the month we're going to start trying, and then we're going to be pregnant, and 9 months later, we're going to do this, right? You start planning it out in your head. My kid's going to have a Aries sign, whatever it is. I'm in LA, so you understand we do all the zodiac stuff. And when it didn't work the first month, we were like, okay, like this, we're struggling now, like 1 month in. Little did we know 6 years of that would continue.
Wow.
And, I think we thought every step of the way when we were about to take more action, maybe work with a doctor more, or take more medication, we were like, this can't be our story. It's going to happen. This can't be our story. And it was for 6 years. And we saw multiple doctors, multiple clinics. We had a pregnancy loss, an ectopic pregnancy, multiple rounds of IVF that did not work, which also was a surprise. I thought once you move to IVF, you get the baby guaranteed.
Right.
And that is very surprising when you're going through it. Yeah. And so 6 years of my life, I basically gave all of my 30s to infertility. And we ultimately did have success. I have 5-year-old twins now, which is also crazy to think they haven't even been in this world as long as we were trying to have them in this world.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And when they arrived, I didn't know who I was anymore as a mom because I had spent so much of my life identifying as the infertile friend. And that was just very surprising. I wasn't ready to give up that part of my story. I felt like it was so much a part of me. And I felt like even when people would see me very pregnant, and I've heard other women talk about this too, they would say, is this your first? And I didn't want to make them feel uncomfortable, but I would say my first that made it to second trimester or, because I wanted to honor what my story was and what had happened to me. But the most surprising part once having my children was that I really felt this crazy identity crisis in a way I was not expecting.
Right. Right. Well, and I think that that's really similar for all experiences of pregnancy and postpartum, but there's that added layer of that, the journey that you went through for not being able to attain that parenthood for so long. And then that became your identity. So that's just a whole nother layer to that. Who am I now? What am I doing in this new chapter of my life? And how do I relate to the world around me and my family? So I can only imagine that must have been very difficult to travel.
It was crazy. Yeah, I think I was spending a lot of time thinking about what my pregnancy was going to be like.
Mhm.
I was not
Yep.
thinking about my 4th trimester at all because
Yeah.
I just couldn't even believe I was gonna get there.
Right.
Um, and I think for many women, and I find this with my clients too, and we can talk more about that, but,
Yeah.
um, we imagine us being a certain kind of mother, reacting to a
Mhm.
certain way. For me, but we're surprised sometimes. Sometimes the craziness of postpartum comes because we don't those expectations are not reality. But also,
Exactly.
for me, it was like I honestly had a hard time admitting or acknowledging I was a mother now.
Mm.
Like, where
Yes.
I had a C-section and a very crazy birth. I did not get to be with my
Mm.
children right away, so there was, like, a little bit of a disconnect for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was really crazy. Ultimately, like you mentioned, my company, InCircle Fertility, once I emerged on the other side, sort of got my feet back on the ground, I just realized there's this huge gap that needs to be filled for
Yeah.
holding hands of people going through infertility. I think so
Right.
many of us in the birthing world have some kind of experience and learn from it and want everybody else to
Mm.
share that knowledge with us, and so that's how my company was born.
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I 100% agree. I Most of the folks that I talk to who are in the perinatal realm of work were inspired by their own journeys, right?
Yes.
And they went through some sort of experience that was like, man, I think my knowledge and my experience could benefit others, and so
Exactly.
what can I do? What can I do to make it a better experience? And it's a healing experience for ourselves, I think, in many ways with the trauma that we experienced. Similarly in my journey where I struggled so badly with my postpartum, same thing, planned
Yeah.
for the birth down to the T, right? Like I took
Yes.
all the birthing classes, all of the breastfeeding things, and it didn't matter because when I
Right.
had that baby boy in my arms, everything just fell apart, and I was like, "What am I doing? This is
Yeah.
horrible."
Yeah.
It's so shocking. But I really loved, how you mentioned just, like, having that gap, to be filled in that space because I feel like there's a lot of those gaps in the
Yes.
in the
Yes.
postpartum realm and in the infertility realm and in the pregnancy realm, all of those things. It's just not a priority for our society to support birth givers in the
Right.
many different facets of the perinatal experience. And so I love what you do. I love that. I think that that's so important and so needed. And, I just think that that surprise factor is so strong for so many of us. Like when we emerge on the other side of pregnancy, wow, I wasn't expecting this. Or, because I've been going through this experience for so long, you know,
Yeah.
am I going to experience the same struggles and pains as people who didn't have to go through that journey? So I'd love if you could just kind of touch on that a little bit more of some of those struggles that surprised you in that fourth trimester, that just were totally unexpected things because of your fertility struggle.
Absolutely. So, again, part of the issue for me was this disconnect I felt towards my
Mhm.
kids. And it's
Mm.
hard to explain. It wasn't I just felt like, where did they come like, where did they
Mm.
come from? This is crazy, and it
Yeah.
was twins, so there's, like, the added insanity of that.
Yes.
And because I had this crazy birth, I was in the hospital for quite a while. I mean, of
Mm.
week, not nothing too crazy, but
Mhm.
I got so cozy at the hospital, I was like, "I don't wanna
Mm.
leave." I mean, that was very surprising because
Right.
I couldn't wait to bring my babies home, and I was, like, so
Mm.
cozy, I had 24/7 childcare, I could sleep when
Yeah.
I wanted to sleep. I was getting cookies delivered to my room at 4 p.m. I'm like, "This isn't so bad at all. Maybe I should just move into the hospital."
Right.
Um, and I think so much of the surprise came because I assumed after struggling for so long, all I would wanna do is, like, be with my kids and my
Yeah.
24/7, and I didn't care so much about nursing, to be honest.
Mhm.
I knew I would try it.
Yep.
I had all the things that you need to do a tandem feed.
Mhm.
Um, but I was very easy on myself with it in that I was
Mm.
like, "It's twins, I'm gonna do my
Mhm.
best." And because I had to go to the ICU for a couple days for 24 hours after I gave birth, they immediately needed formula,
Mhm.
and because I wasn't available, um, and actually, like, I was surprised that that actually felt really good. It took
Yeah.
pressure off of me. I was like,
Mhm.
"They need to eat, they need to be
Yep.
sustained, like, I don't have to worry about this."
Yep.
And I will say, like, my doctor was awesome because when I finally woke up at like 4 in the morning in the ICU, they were like, make sure she has a pump in case she wants to pump. And so I
Yeah.
was like completely delirious and out of it, but I was like, I have to pump. I have to
Yeah.
pump. And so I did. And this nurse like helped me pump and I got my colostrum
Yeah.
out and they were able to bring it to my babies. And I was like, oh my God, I'm even
Yes.
a mother from the intensive care unit. Like that part felt good.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the relief I felt, again, like going through infertility, you picture that you're that
Mm.
just this like ethereal motherhood, like you've finally gotten what you wanted
Yes.
and there's a baby on either breast and everything is going perfectly. And
Right.
what it was me in the ICU with like bleeding into my colostrum, but I didn't care. I'm like, bring it to
Mm.
my babies right now. But I
Right.
still felt a sense of like, okay, I'm mothering them from the ICU, and that's just what it has to be right now. So I don't think
Yes.
anybody can really prepare for that. Nobody imagines they're going to be in the ICU post birth, but every surprise, I just tried to take it with a grain of salt and be like, look, they're alive, they're here.
Right.
That's what's important.
Right. Right. And that resiliency is just it's really admirable. I mean, that's just a beautiful thing. I'm so happy that that was how
Thank
you were
you.
able to process that because I think anybody who goes through that experience, I mean, no one would blame them for being like, what the hell?
Y
Like what is
Totally.
happening right now? Like this was not in my birth plan. This was
Right.
not in what I pictured for my postpartum experience. And then we have all of these pressures that surround us around how we feed our baby and how we're
Yes.
supposed to connect with them immediately and all of these different things. So, I really appreciate your vulnerability with sharing that because I know that I think that will really inspire a lot of people too. We're like, okay, I'm not alone. This is actually very normal to have that experience of feeling a little bit disconnected,
Yeah.
because I do feel like we think right away, "Oh my gosh, I've been growing this baby within me for 9 months," whatever, 9 plus or minus
Right.
months,
Right.
and they're finally here, and then in your case, we've worked forever for this dream to come true, right? And then to not feel maybe that immediate connection, it's like, "What's wrong with me?"
Yes.
What am I doing wrong?" And then we start feeling those really negative thoughts in our head about I'm not a good mother, I'm
Yes.
not connecting to them right away, like what is going on? And then that mental health piece can start, showing its face up a little bit
Yes.
more.
And sort of
Um,
eating away at our brain and all the thoughts for
yes,
sure.
yes, and we're already flooded with hormones, right? So we're
Yeah.
already like, wow,
It's
what's going
craziness.
on? And yeah,
Mhm.
and we're exhausted from the birth, and
Yes.
trauma that comes into the birthing space adds to that, and it's just one thing that we can never prepare for. And I think I really would love to hear a little bit more about what you were saying with like that had become your identity, right? Going through this 6 years of infertility and then finally having the babies here. Talk to me a little bit more about how that process went for you with maybe finding yourself again and
Yeah.
understanding who you were post infertility.
I think that, the infertility piece of it, so my kids are 5, so they were born
Hmm.
in 2018, and since 2018, so much more is talked about in terms of infertility, but at the
Yeah.
time, it was still pretty shrouded in secrecy,
Mhm.
and I innately put up an armor when I was around people because I was
Mm.
constantly prepared to answer questions awkwardly about why we don't have kids or when we were gonna have
Mm.
kids
Mm.
or, all the things that people say. I
Right.
literally had like a coat of armor on me and I didn't realize it, of course, until my
Mm.
kids were here and it was off, but I
Right.
went into the world very defensive and very angry and very upset about my situation, and it manifested in, like, the minute somebody says something to me, I have the perfect comeback or the
Mm.
perfect quip or, like, I'm surprised you would even ask somebody like that, that question in this day
Right.
and age, and so releasing that armor was very hard for me.
Mm.
And it did because I didn't know it was there until it wasn't,
Right.
or until it
Right.
needed to go, basically. And
Right.
so I didn't know what it felt like to go out into the world with as a mother, right? Like somebody sees you, they don't know your story, and they just see you with
Mhm.
these 2 babies and like, "Oh my god, do twins run in your family? Oh my god." And I'm like,
Mhm.
"No, it's obviously IVF," because that's what I'm
Right.
thinking everybody
Right.
thinks.
Right.
Um or, "Oh my gosh, you're so blessed. Oh, a boy
Mm.
and a girl, you're so lucky, one and done." And
Yeah.
so, again, it felt like it was like my whole history was not being seen, and it just felt
Right.
very hard. I didn't know how to navigate that.
Yeah.
And I think really my advocacy work was born out of that, of feeling like I still wanted to honor my story, and I wasn't
Mm,
prepared to just like abandon the fertility community, which I had become
yeah.
so much a part of. And yes, I did get my happy ending, but the infertility journey will be forever part of my story and my life. And so how do I bring that into the next phase of my motherhood? And so it definitely took a while. Um, my identity was not necessarily top of mind in the first 6
Mhm.
months postpartum, right? Like
Right.
keeping my twins alive was,
Yes.
but now that I've had time to reflect more, I realize that I really just wasn't me, and I didn't know who me was even at that point.
Mm, yeah.
I thought I was gonna wanna spend every second with them after what we went through, and then I did not want to
Right.
spend every second with them, and so understand like,
Right.
being very surprised by that. We put them
Mhm.
into daycare pretty early, like 4 months old, not full time, but just because we
Mhm.
needed the break, and I needed
Yeah.
a minute to breathe, and just all of those things that I did not imagine happening. I did not imagine looking
Mm,
for daycare at 4 months old, but we found, like, this
right.
amazing place that was able to take them for a couple hours, a couple days a week, and that was life-changing because I could then
Mm,
start spending the time to get back to my identity.
yes. Oh, I love that so much. That's such a beautiful way to honor yourself and your needs, because I feel like so many folks that I, work with, and I'm sure you experience this as well, it's just this expectation of, us as individuals and our needs are secondary to our
Yes.
children, right? And we are expected to push that aside. And, even in society, like once baby is born, we kind of disappear into the background and it all becomes about the baby, how the baby is feeding. In your case, twins, that's double the expectation of care, right?
Right.
And like, oh, you really don't have any time to, meet your needs because you have two babies who need you. And so it's like, this added pressure, I would imagine, to always show up, always being like, okay, all one of the trends that I hate that's still kind of prevalent right now going around is this it's not my time
Mm.
concept. And while I can appreciate like kind of the thought behind that, where, this is time for my baby, it's time for my children, my needs like are secondary, I just think it's such a toxic concept to cling to too strongly, because our babies need us to be well cared for, well
Yes.
nourished, have that time for ourselves so that we can show up and connect with them in the way that we can. We can be present with them in the way that we're able to be, because we're taking that time for ourselves. And I am like blown away that you recognize that for yourself so early. And I wish I would have had that foresight for myself, because that was not my case. And I suffered for it for
Yeah.
sure.
I think it's part of a blessing for me of becoming a parent older, and in those years of
Yes.
infertility, watching my friends struggle through the postpartum process and not take care
Yes.
of themselves. Also, my mother's a therapist, which is sometimes a blessing and sometimes a curse, but in this case, and my mom, like I grew up, my mom, it was just me and my mom. She was a single
Yeah.
parent for many years. She's not anymore, but she was always very good about taking care of herself, and it was just a
Yeah.
good example for me that kind of innately came in. I mean, as a single mom too, she worked crazy hours full time to do everything we wanted to do as a family, and
Right.
um, she always made time for something for herself, and I
Yeah.
never looked at it as selfish. I always just looked
Yeah.
at it as part of her life, like it's just part of her routine. And I think
Yes.
in some ways she was very helpful postpartum in reminding me of all of those things. And I didn't find it weird and I didn't feel weird
Yeah.
about it. And it's like I think especially in our community of perinatal workers,
Yeah.
we can hear a lot of us say, you can't pour from an empty cup, or
Right.
a healthy mommy makes a healthy baby. And I think not all of us live that, even though we say it all the time. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
right? Like that's a big
Yeah.
part of it. And so I
Yes.
really tried to live it. And
Yeah.
I have to say, major shout out to my husband, who
Mm.
it was a very stressful time for us financially. We were brand new parents of twins, and he works in entertainment. And so
Mm.
it's a lot of ups and downs. And in a great way, he had just wrapped a job when they were born, literally on a Friday, and Monday they were born.
Oh, wow.
Um, so financially, that was a little bit stressful, but he was around a lot. And I think
Yes.
not constantly being outnumbered by babies was very helpful, like very helpful. And he's not a baby guy, my husband. Like I had never
Mm.
really seen him with a baby, I don't think ever. And he really, really rose to the occasion, which gave me
Oh,
time to be able to care for myself and rest and recover and all of those things. And that's huge. And I think looking back, I would never have articulated that expectation of him because I didn't know.
right.
But if we can, right, if we're teaching now what we learned, if we
Hmm.
can articulate to our partner really what we need, and we might not know, but just that we need their
Right.
presence and their like emotional and physical presence,
Mm-hmm.
it's very helpful. It's very
Oh
helpful.
my
I don't think
gosh.
I changed a diaper the first
100%.
like 3 weeks of my kid's life. He was just
Love
on it.
that.
Yeah. And it was
Yep.
like, all of a
You're
sudden
like,
I was
you
like, "Oh
that's
my
your job.
god." Yeah, exactly. Times
That's
2.
amazing. Yes,
Mhm.
times 2. That is admirable for sure. Well, I absolutely agree with you. That piece of communication with our partners ahead of time for as much as we know or can communicate, so crucial because you both probably have never done this before. And even if you
Yeah.
have, maybe there was things that didn't go the way you were hoping and your relationship was impacted by that, those
Yes.
first experiences. This is a chance for you to come together and be a united team in entering this new parenthood or this new postpartum phase. And if you're a brand new parent, you want to start from day one unified in your understanding of how you can support one another, communicate what you do need, and then making sure you're on the same page for sharing that parental load from the beginning. Because
Yes.
the more you're practiced with those communications, the more you understand each other, and what you're expecting, and maybe they don't align, right? Because some of us assume we're on the same page with how we want to do certain things, or we assume our partners know what we need. What they say about assuming, right? And that was definitely the case with me and my husband the first time around. I
Yeah.
was like, oh man, I really wasn't on the same page with you about some of these things. And then it created that rift and at a time when you need each other the most. So
Totally.
yeah, I think that communication piece is huge for the
Yeah.
planning phase as well as once you're there. But that's amazing. I'm so glad that he was there to support you because that support piece is crucial. It
Yes.
really is. In our society, we don't have that built-in village, and so
Right.
understanding who we need and who our, ride or die people are and how they can help us and communicating that to them ahead of time because people want to be helpful, right? For the most
Right.
part. We have the outliers who just love to cause drama in our lives, and we need to understand that and know that too and identify
Yes.
that and be able to have boundary conversations. But a lot of people want to be helpful, but they don't know how to help, and that's when we can really advocate for ourselves what that looks like. So I
Totally.
love
And
that so much.
I think also having been through infertility together, we hit some of the lowest
Mhm.
lows of our relationship.
Mm,
And I think
yeah.
once we got through those, I never felt I was like nothing could ever get worse than that. So
Mm,
even if we're not on the same page from the parenting perspective, I know we can make it through. That sounds
yes.
really optimistic now that we're past it. In the moment, I might not have felt that way. But now,
Right.
being able to talk about it on the other side of it, it was like we've already been through the depths of hell together.
Yeah.
We're going to be fine.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah. And having that relationship as the foundation to fall back on
yeah.
is so, so key. And so, yeah, I think that that's really powerful being able to strengthen and understand that that piece is the foundation, right? As you're moving into your parenthood so that you can turn toward each other when things get really hard instead of away and start feeling like
Totally.
you're drifting apart,
Right. You have to
that is
remind yourself so many times like we wanted this together. It might not
yes,
feel like what we thought it was going to yet,
right.
but we wanted this together. That's the whole point of us being here like this.
Beautiful. Yes, exactly. Like, let's come back to the reason why we wanted to start a
Yes.
family and why we chose each other for that reason.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. I love that so much. I know one thing had talked about, or that you had, mentioned when we were scheduling this. I had said that the village doesn't exist, right, as much now for when we're raising our
Yes.
kids and when we're healing and postpartum and all this. And something that I thought was really interesting that you brought up was that it takes a village to make a baby too. So
Yes.
I'd love for you to kind of touch on that
Yes.
piece a little bit.
It's funny, I just tried to trademark that for my business. It takes a
Oh,
village to make a baby, but it got rejected because which I understand. It was worth a try,
yeah,
but it's a
yeah,
little too general because so many people can say it. But
right.
I swear, I mean, I joke that like 100 people helped me have my baby, and it's true.
Yes.
Um, and it was, I mean, I saw everybody from acupuncturists, right? You think about in the
Mm,
clinic, right? My fertility clinic, it was like the front desk team, the ultrasound technicians, the nurses, the people who deal with the finance department, my medical doctor. I had an acupuncturist. One of my best friends is a Reiki healer. She was working with me.
mm,
The pharmacist who became my BFF. I mean, and the list goes on and on and on. My
yeah.
therapist, all
Mm,
these people. And why shouldn't we extend the village to making the baby if we're
yes.
struggling, right? Like the whole point of the village when we have the baby is so that we can get a break, come up for
Mhm,
air, feel like we're in community. And
mhm,
so that is what it felt like for me to have my baby. I feel like anyone and everyone, I went to multiple clinics. Both of my
mm,
main doctors, even when I left my first clinic, I still stayed in touch with that doctor. He didn't do anything wrong. I just like needed a
yeah,
new energy after several years. And like he was
yeah.
very much still a part of my team once I left his clinic. He lent me a tank once of nitrogen to drive my embryos from one clinic to the next. I mean, the things,
Wow.
right? Like, and you just like, I never thought that was a story I was going to tell in my life,
Right.
but he was a huge part of my village. And I'm still in touch
Yes.
with those nurses because you see them and they become your family. You're spending so much time there. I saw my
Yep.
IVF nurse way more than I saw my mom during my infertility journey.
Right. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I just believe in embracing that village. So much so, in fact, that even now I'm in LA and I've created a group called the Making Mothers Collective, which
Okay.
is all practitioners from fertility all the way through perimenopause. And we meet
Wow.
monthly and we share ideas and we talk about how we can be this village for other people at every step of the motherhood journey. Whether you're
Wow.
yearning to become a mother or wanting to become a better mother, or you're, postpartum, or you're having hormone issues, or all these things,
Mm,
because I believe in strengthening that village now and not just waiting until you're like desolate and in crisis
yes.
mode and being like, where is my village? What are they talking
Right.
about? So I feel really passionate about that now. And that is part of also why I started my company, because I want to be that village for you. It's like
Mm,
we've come to accept doula help, midwife help,
yeah.
lactation consultant help,
Mm,
chiropractic help once the baby's here. It's like
yeah.
we've been given permission to accept help once the baby's here because the baby needs
Mhm.
to thrive. Like what you were saying
Yes.
earlier, right? The baby needs to thrive. And so now we can spend all this time on self care so that the baby can thrive. Why
Right.
not from the beginning? Like, why not give
Yes.
you that thriving sense from before the baby is here so that you walk into motherhood feeling empowered and healthy, you
Yes.
know?
Oh, yes, amen. If I had like a little love button right now, I
Yes,
would
love,
know I
love.
would do that. It's so good. It's so true. Oh, I just love everything you said.
Thank
That's
you.
that continuity of care, right?
Yes,
From trying to conceive all the way to improving who we are as a parent. Like it's
right.
this whole spectrum.
Exactly. Mhm.
And every step of the way, we need somebody to be honoring our experiences, holding our hand, supporting us through the challenges, and being our freaking cheerleader squad when we're rocking it, right? Like, because we're
Yeah.
the hardest critics on ourselves. And
Yes.
we could be doing a beautiful job, but we're just in our own head about it. And having those people to be like, oh my gosh, you know what? You are killing it. Like, you are doing so well with this. You are keeping up with everything that you need to be doing to care for your baby, and it does not matter that this stuff is getting left behind because you're prioritizing what matters right now, right?
That's
And
right.
oh, I love this collective idea. I think that that's
Yes.
really unique. I haven't heard of that
It's
anywhere
been
else.
really, I mean, we're still developing it, but it's been extremely
Yeah.
gratifying for sure.
Yeah. And I'm sure that a lot of you work with some of the same families, I would
That's right.
assume.
That's
So
right.
being able to be, on the same page as care providers for those same patients or families is just
Yeah.
so powerful.
Right. It is
That's
that
really
continuity
cool.
piece that you're talking about.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that so much.
Yes.
Oh my
Thank you.
gosh, I could talk about this forever. This
I
is so
know.
fun.
I could too. I'm like, I could talk about all the amazing I think about like there's a there's a photographer in that group and you're like a photographer, but she cares so deeply. Shout out to Jess Kaler. She cares so
Mhm.
deeply about telling your story through photography. So she really, for
Mm,
example, like spends time understanding the story of the birth and the
mhm.
family. She does a lot of non-traditional family photo shoots and just having that awareness to make people feel seen and supported is like amazing. You wouldn't think of a family photographer necessarily as part of your village of raising a mother, but it truly
Right.
is.
Right. Yes.
Because she cares so deeply about making sure you feel seen as she's your
Yes.
photographer, you know?
The scene piece. Yes.
Yeah.
That's so true. And it's not just like the Instagram worthy pieces,
Right.
it's like here's when the tears that we shed
Yes.
because it was another, negative test or, like just that whole experience being honored, like you said before, and being seen and spoken about and held in the way
Yes.
that we need it is so powerful. And it really
Yes.
does empower us through the rest of this crazy journey of parenthood, right? Like,
Truly, truly
oh,
does.
yes, it's crazy. Well, I'd love to learn a little bit more about like your work and how
Yeah.
you help folks going through the infertility
Sure.
process and what that looks like.
Sure. So I call myself an infertility coach as opposed to a fertility coach. And
Yes.
the reason is because a fertility coach, in my view, is a great support, maybe helps you figure out your hormones, get your cycle on track, talk to you about nutrition, all the things that are super important. But by the time people come to me, they're already on the infertility path. Maybe they've
Yeah.
had some treatment already and it's failed. Maybe they want to check out a new doctor, new clinic. They're not happy where they are. Maybe they've had a loss and they're not sure what's going on. They don't know which
Mm.
questions to ask. And so the way that I always say it is I hold the hearts and hands of women and couples, but mostly women on that infertility path already.
Yeah.
So the way that it works is people work with me for several months at a time. And I
Mm.
do a several month package mostly because of what we talked about, some continuity.
Yeah.
Especially in fertility clinics, you can often feel like a number. You feel like you're being
Mm.
bounced around from a nurse to a doctor to a different doctor to a nurse. Your doctor's off that day. Your doctor's doing surgery that day. They're not there. Like, I want to be the place that you come back to that's always
Mm.
consistent. So we prep for
Yeah.
all of your appointments together. I think a lot of women, like the most successful, strong, and powerful women, are still scared in a doctor's office
Oh
to
yeah.
ask, right? You know this for
Yep.
sure.
Yes.
Postpartum especially, like then because you
Mm.
feel like you don't even know who you are anymore. But
No, right.
kind of same with infertility. It takes such a toll on you emotionally and
Mm.
physically and your relationships. It's very easy to lose sight of who you are. And so I have like lawyers who work with me who could like handle a criminal defense case in court, but they
Yes.
don't feel comfortable asking their doctor what the timeline is going to be for their treatment or whatever it is. So
Right. Right.
it's crazy, really.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about that. I try to make them feel as empowered as possible, which you can't guarantee. And I can't guarantee that to my clients either. But I can
Mm.
guarantee that you're going to go into that office feeling as prepared and in control as
Yes.
possible.
Yes.
And then similarly, we debrief. So they come out,
Mhm.
we debrief, we talk together about what the doctor said. Do we agree? How do we feel about it? Because also your sense of gut feeling feels gone when you're
Yeah.
going through infertility because you're on all these drugs and you just don't know what's going
Right.
on. Very
Yeah.
hard to trust your gut. Um, so I do. So anyway, in these packages, we do several calls a month on Zoom, and then a
Mhm.
lot of it is texting. And I'm curious for you
Mm.
too, if you have this. Like, do you text a lot with your clients?
Yeah, so I have a secured portal and it's like
Yes,
a messenger and
exactly.
it's like game changing because it's
Yes,
great being able to meet, face to face on a call, but it's the middle of the night things that are
exactly.
keeping you up or whatever that you're just like, I need help. And being able to
Totally.
just have that access is so powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
Or even just like if it's the middle of the night, you might not answer, but just being able
Right.
to have your client tell you what they're thinking so that you
Yes.
can, right? Because if
In the moment.
in the moment,
Mhm.
exactly. Like,
Yeah.
I'm all for therapy, believe me.
Mhm.
But like, if you're not seeing your therapist for 6 more days at 3 o'clock on Tuesday, like, what are you supposed to
Yep.
do at 4 a.m. on Thursday? So
Right.
I just, I tell my clients, like, I don't respond 24/7, but I'm available
Right.
24/7 so they can reach out. And that's just
Yep.
such a comfort to know that you have
Mhm.
a lifeline at any given day or time.
Yes.
Um, and of course, we do like optimization. So I make sure they're on all the right supplements. And also, what's been
Mhm.
so powerful for me that was also a little unexpected is that I have been able to create so many relationships closely with fertility doctors. And so
Yes.
if I have a client and my gut feeling is like something's really not right, there's someone else I can always reach out to who trusts me, who
Mm.
I trust, who
Yeah.
is a fertility doctor who can be like, yeah, that doesn't sound great. Or yes, I would do the
Right.
same thing. You're in good hands. So I can provide that validation to my client by getting it from this network of professionals that I've created and work with. And that is also an
Yes.
incredibly powerful feeling. Like you don't feel like you're at the behest of what your doctor or schedule says. Like you're
Yes.
going in feeling smart and educated and in control, which is not how much of this journey feels.
Oh my gosh, yes, that piece of being in control, seen, and heard is so, so important
Yes.
throughout the perinatal journey, because so often, like, there's that imbalance of power, right? Where you go into a doctor's office and you feel you're not in power because they're the doctor and they went to school for this and they know what they're saying, but also, you need to be honored in a way where you're heard about your own body, about your own experiences, but we're just not supported in that way a lot of times. And so
Right.
having that advocacy of working with someone like you or, in the postpartum time frame, someone like me who can be like, no, you have the right to be
Yes.
seen, heard, and have pieces of control where it makes sense. And have that validation is so empowering. It
It
really
really
is.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved your piece about the resources because
Mm.
when you are in the thick of it, whether it's the infertility process or you're in postpartum and you're just overwhelmed by everything, like you're not going to sit there and want to research,
Exactly.
where can I get this support or, who is available to help me with whatever issue I'm having. We're resourced for you, right? And we're that
Exactly.
connection piece. And I think that is so, so powerful.
I think you're right. I think it's such an
Yeah.
important piece of it. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, like many things, you don't know what you don't know. So
exactly.
you don't know what
Mhm.
resources you need. So trust me when
Yep.
I tell you to go with somebody who's been there because
Yes.
they will know what you need and when you need it. And I
Right.
think that's so important for us as women.
Yes. And not having to wait or go through the same difficult path that somebody else has already carved out for you, like
Exactly.
you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I feel like
Exactly.
we are expected to because we should innately know what we're doing, right? When
Right.
we're going through these women problems or
Right.
women processes, like it's just not true, like
Right.
it's not this like all of a sudden you're becoming a mother and you download some sort of like magical, like instruction manual on I know how to do everything. I know how to
Right.
feed my baby. I know how to care for them or I know how to get pregnant immediately. Like and
Right.
that's what I'm expecting and expected of me to do. And it's just that's not the reality, it just
Exactly.
isn't.
Exactly, and I think, we think to ourselves, "Well, people have been doing this for millions of years," but,
Yeah.
like, they were often miserable
Yeah.
or sick or
Right.
had a life expectancy of 40 years, so they didn't need to plan for long-term mental health benefits or whatever it might be, and so
Right.
I do think that this is the better way to do it with the support and the village.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And even, on the flip side of that, they had a lot of these, built-in villages and
Yes.
support systems through, their different tribes or through their different
Yes.
communities. They had that network that just seemed more natural and, obvious
Right.
that they needed that help, right? And we've kind of lost that with this
Yes.
surge of independence and, oh, like we're in this modern culture, like, we're super women, we can do everything and we're expected to know how to do everything while still maintaining the house and having a smile on our
Right.
face and all these things. And it's, it's crippling. It's not
Mhm.
possible to do it all on our
Exactly.
own. You can do it.
Crippling is a great word for it. It can be so crippling.
Yes. It's like I always tell my clients, you can do it, but you can't do it alone. Like
Mhm.
it's up to you to say, like, I am capable of doing this and I am capable of doing this, but you cannot do it all alone. Like
Right.
it's not possible. So we have to figure out the priorities and where to shift things and where to resource yourself to be able to survive as a person yourself and to support your family.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, well,
Exactly.
I love all of this. Is there any other little tidbits that you could give for people who are going through this journey right now that you would love to just help inspire or encourage them to keep their head up?
I'm very much a believer that you need to feel it to heal it. So
Mm,
if you're feeling really low and really isolated, not that I'm suggesting that you maintain feeling in isolation, but
mm,
like give yourself I say like a pity party deadline. Like I want to live in the pity party, but by 24 hours from now, I'm going to force my way out. So I want you to feel it because I need you to heal it. But I also want you to set the goal that and it doesn't mean when you're out in 24 hours that the issue you were having or the isolation you were feeling goes away.
Right.
It's sort of giving yourself permission in 24 hours or whatever the case may be for the both and. So yes, I still feel crappy about my loss. Yes, I feel hopeless about my loss, but I'm going to maintain those feelings and honor them and see them and add in a little bit of hope, or I'm going to just push myself a little harder today than I did yesterday and see if that makes things better. And I just think it doesn't have to be 24 hours. It could be a week. You could be like, I'm going to have a pity party for a week. I'm going to eat ice cream every night, whatever it is, drink a bottle of wine every day. Not that I'm suggesting either of those, but whatever you need to do to get through. And then just give yourself a deadline to be able to pull yourself out, I think is a helpful way to wallow in it. Because it's you're forcing yourself to make it not forever. You know that it won't be forever. And, in terms of, I feel like I have a lot of tips for people supporting people going through infertility.
I would love to hear that.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's some crossover with us, with what we provide in terms of services as well to those who are supporting those in need, which is don't say nothing. I think we are so trained as a society to not bring up the bad news and not bring up the stress and think that that's the right thing to do. But how bad we know that feels. And everyone goes through it. If God forbid somebody had passed away in your family, your friends wouldn't ignore it. Right.
Right.
And so whatever grief you're experiencing, whether it's the grief of infertility or the grief of not knowing who you are postpartum or the hormone, right? In order to feel seen and loved, you do need your people to acknowledge it. And sometimes they don't know what to say or do. And I always say honesty is the best policy. Just be like, I don't know what to say and I don't know what to do, but I'm here for you. And I will sit with you in this. Or I know you love sushi from this one place. I'm dropping it off at 6:00 tonight. Those things are very powerful ways to show up. So I really believe in that.
Yeah. I was just going to say, don't wait for the person who is suffering or struggling to ask for help or tell you how you can help, because sometimes they don't even know and they don't know how to say those things. And so you being proactive about, here's how I'm going to help you. And then they could tell you, oh, that doesn't really work for me or whatever, but you're offering the hand.
Yes,
right. And by offering that hand, then it's so much easier for them to take that instead of asking for that hand. Right. And being able to advocate for that. Sometimes that's just so impossible when you're in that hole, So I couldn't agree more. I think that's really great.
I also hate along those lines, people would always be like, keep me posted.
Yes.
And I was like, that's a job for me that I don't want.
Right.
I don't want to keep you posted. Just show up regardless. What do I need to keep you posted about? You know that I'm in hell right now going through infertility. What other posts do you need from me?
Right.
So that's when I try to avoid saying as well. Sometimes I catch myself saying it and I'm like, ugh, take it back. Don't say keep me posted, not to clients, but something else where I'm just I hate that phrase in general.
Yes. No, that's a really good one. Yeah. It's more I'm going to check in on you on Wednesday. Give them when they can expect to hear from you is way better than let me know when you're, drowning to the point of you can't do it anymore. And then I'll show up.
Exactly.
No.
And then just show up. I remember one of my best friends was going through divorce and she did not want to talk. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to call you every day at this time. And if I leave you a message, I leave you a message, but I'm going to call. So if you want to pick up, you can. And
love that.
She never did, but I felt I didn't put it on her to be like, can you just call me at noon to check in on me? I was just going to do it,
Yeah. Yeah. And having that presence there, even if she didn't feel like talking, I'm sure was a comfort, somebody cares about what I'm going through. I might not be ready to talk about it right now, but I know that Abby's there and she's thinking of me and she loves me and supports me. And that is so powerful too, because that piece of being seen and validated in your experience is there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, I love that so much.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, we could talk about so many things. So many things. But I would love for you to share, I always ask my guests, like, what's one piece of advice or a helpful mantra, for anybody out there who just needs a little bit of inspiration today? What would you share?
So, in terms of parenting, the best piece of advice that I got was actually from my stepfather. And to this day, we use it for everything. And it was, you run their life, they don't run yours. And
Ooh,
it was
like
so
that.
good and such a good reminder. And I see there's so many, I can't necessarily just throw that out there to anybody. It might be a little too
Mm,
harsh for some people, but
yeah.
for me, it was so helpful because I see my friends sort of struggling with newborns. Like they're
Mm,
dying to go out for dinner with friends, but they're like, I can't because I have to put my kid to bed at this exact time or something. This bad thing
mhm.
is going to happen, blah, blah. Of course, you do what's best for you and your family, but remember that
Right.
they're 3 months old, so you run their life and they don't run yours.
Mhm. That
And
is so powerful. I love
I
that.
know. It's again back to that reminder that, like,
Mhm.
you're bringing them into your life. Your life is already going. They
Yep.
don't they don't know they can't even say hello to you. They don't
Yes.
know what to do in terms of, and you're letting these little beings run your life sometimes.
Yes.
Um, that was really powerful, and my stepfather also, major credit to him,
Mhm.
when I was giving up nursing and pumping, which I, of course, struggled with because of all the
Mhm.
stigma that comes with it. But like I said, my kids were already getting formula and pumping. I was really minimally
Yes.
nursing. But the
Mm.
time you spend cleaning the pumping parts and my stepfather was like, that's time that you could spend doing something so much more meaningful with them.
Yes.
And I was like, you're so right. Like, why am I spending hours of my day cleaning these pump parts for
Right.
who? They don't
Right.
need it. They're happy with the formula. They couldn't care less. So, again,
Mhm.
both of those were just really good reframes that you are the person in charge of what your days look like and what your life looks like. And I know that sometimes it's like the hormones are raging, your stuff is everywhere, and you just can't feel like you're in control. Like, great, then fine, take the pressure off. But at the end of the day, you can pick yourself back up and remember, like, how you plan it out is how it should be because you run their life. They don't run yours, you know? It's just
Yes.
so helpful.
It is. I love that reframe. And it really gives you back that piece of my needs matter, my life and what brings me joy matters, and I don't have to disappear just
Yes.
because now I'm a parent.
It's
You know?
crazy. It you
Yeah,
know, it
yeah.
it really is, and even with the best of intentions, we fall prey to that sometimes.
Yes.
So just having that reminder can be really helpful, you
Oh my
know?
gosh. Yes, I love that so much.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. And I just
You.
appreciate your wisdom and your willingness to be so vulnerable and sharing your story and just all of the amazing tips that you gave today. It has been just so wonderful to have you here.
Thank
And
you.
I would love for you to share too how anybody listening could get in touch with you, like where they can connect.
Yes, I love me some Instagram, so you can always find
Yes.
me on the gram. My company is InCircle Fertility. I say like up level your inner circle. So InCircle
Mm,
Fertility. You can DM me there anytime. You can catch me on my website, incirclefertility.com. And then my podcast is called The Fertility Chick, which also has its own Instagram. You can DM me there too. I'm a part of all of them. And that podcast, much like yours, is just telling stories so that we can all feel seen and heard. And that is always my goal. So if something touches you or resonates with you, always reach out and let me know. And
perfect.
being in community with women going through this is like everything to me. So I always respond, please reach out for any and all things that you feel like you want to communicate to me.
I love that. Thank you so much, Abby. Well, my beautiful life creators, we've done another episode of Empowering Postpartum. And just remember, my coaching one on one services guides new and pregnant moms through the transition through motherhood so that you can bond with baby without sacrificing your own self care. And if this is what you're wanting for your postpartum, you can connect with me on Instagram as well, empowering underscore postpartum, and we can chat about how I can support you through your journey. And remember, this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, download it, and live it. And I hope you just have a fabulous week, and we'll see you again next week for another amazing episode of Empowering Postpartum. Thank you again so much, Abby.
Thank you.